The cold night on the old colony world was darker than usual. Heavy clouds covered the twin moons, and sharp winds cut across the empty roads like knives. Jonas Walker, a quiet human engineer living alone on the edge of town, walked slowly through. The storm with his jacket pulled tight. He had spent the whole evening repairing broken power lines, and now he only wanted to go home and rest. But destiny had different plans for him tonight. As he crossed the abandoned field near the forest line, he heard something strange. At first it was soft, almost hidden under the sound of the angry wind. A tiny cry, weak, shaking, scared. Jonas stopped. He looked around, thinking maybe it was some injured animal. But then he heard it again, a child's cry. His heart jumped. No child should be out here in this weather. He moved toward the sound, pushing through long wet grass. Lightning flashed, giving him a quick glimpse of a small shape curled near a rock. Jonas hurried forward. There she was, a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting on the cold ground with her knees pulled tight to her chest. Her clothes were torn, soaked, and far too thin for the freezing night. Her skin had a soft blue tint and glowing silver lines on her arms, clear signs she was not human. Her hair was tangled and her eyes were huge with fear. When she noticed Jonas coming closer, she tried to crawl away, but she was too weak. Her hands slipped in the mud, and she fell to her side. Jonas slowly raised his hands to show he meant no harm. Hey, it's okay, he said gently. I won't hurt you. I'm here to help. The girl shook her head violently. She looked terrified of him. Her breathing was fast, like she expected an attack at any moment. Jonas took off his jacket and placed it slowly on the ground between them. He didn't want to scare her more. You're freezing, he said softly. Take the jacket, please, you'll get sick. But she didn't move. Another flash of lightning lit the area, and Jonas saw the mark on her ankle-deep red metal ring, bruising the skin. Not a normal bracelet, a restraint. Someone had kept her captive. Someone powerful enough or cruel enough to leave a child like this. Jonas felt anger building inside him, but he pushed it down. First, he needed to save her. A loud roar of thunder shook the ground. The girl covered her ears, crying harder. Jonas slowly approached, step by step, letting her see each movement. When he finally reached her, she tried to pull away again but collapsed from exhaustion. Easy, Jonas whispered. You're safe now. He wrapped his jacket around her gently. Her small body shivered under his hands. She was ice cold. Jonas lifted her, and she weighed almost nothing. She had not eaten properly for days. She buried her face into his chest, still crying softly, but now out of fear and cold, not resistance. As he carried her through the storm, Jonas noticed shadows moving above the clouds. Silent shapes. Dark ships hovering far away, watching the land below. They were searching for something. Or someone. He looked at the girl in his arms and understood. She was running from them. Jonas walked faster. The wind tried to push him back. The rain hit his face, but he didn't stop. The girl clung to his shirt, trembling uncontrollably. Her breath was quick and shallow. She whispered something in a language Jonas didn't understand, but the fear in her voice was enough. You're safe, he repeated. I promise, no one will take you. When he reached his small home, he quickly opened the door and carried her inside. Warm lights filled the room, and the storm stayed outside like a monster locked behind glass. He placed the girl near the heater, wrapping her in a blanket. She sat there quietly, still shaking, looking at him with wide, distrustful eyes. Jonas knelt in front of her. My name is Jonas, he said softly. You don't have to talk, just rest. Nobody will hurt you here. The girl finally whispered one word. Why, help me? Jonas looked at her. She was bruised, cold, alone, and hunted. No child deserved such a fate, because someone should. He answered. Outside, in the stormy sky, the silent ships slowly turned their lights toward the town. They were not done searching. The storm night became a memory, but it never truly left the house. Jonas remembered every detail of the little alien girl he carried home. He had named her Lyra, after the star cluster that glowed outside the colony windows each winter. For many months, Lyra barely spoke. She hid behind furniture, flinched at loud sounds, and woke screaming from nightmares. Jonas never pushed her. He just stayed close, fixing machines quietly while she watched him from a safe distance. Little by little, she stopped hiding. She began sitting at the table while he cooked. She handed him tools when he repaired engines. She even learned to smile, though it was small and quick. Her glowing silver arm lines brightened when she felt safe. Jonas grew to love her like his own daughter, but the galaxy had other plans. As Lyra grew older, strange things started happening. When she was angry, lights flickered. When she was scared, nearby machines shut down. When she cried, tiny sparks danced in the air. Jonas realized her species had rare energy abilities someone might want to control. He kept her hidden, but hiding was never forever. By the time Lyra reached her teenage years, she was tall, graceful, and incredibly smart. But she was also restless. Questions filled her mind like shadows she could not escape. She stared at the sky for long hours. She sat at the edge of the colony road, looking at travelers coming and going, wondering if one of them knew anything about her past. One day she asked Jonas the question that changed everything. "Where did you find me?" Jonas hesitated. She was old enough now to hear the truth, but he feared her reaction. "In the storm," he said. "You were alone, hurt. Someone had kept you prisoner before you escaped." She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "And you know nothing else?" Jonas shook his head. "I tried to learn more, but your species is rare, secretive. Many records were destroyed in the old wars." Lyra stood up suddenly and pushed her chair back so hard it fell over. "So you kept me in this town with no answers," she shouted. "All these years you didn't even try harder." Jonas stepped toward her. "Lyra, I did everything. Stop calling me that name," she snapped. "It's not even my real name. You gave it to me because you needed someone to fill your empty house." Her words hit him like a punch. "That's not true," Jonas said softly, but Lyra's anger had been building for years. The questions about her parents, her homeworld, her past, it all exploded at once. "You're not my father," she shouted. "You never were." The moment hung in the air like shattered glass. Jonas felt something inside him break, but he kept calm. "I know. I'm not your blood," he said quietly. "But I have cared for you since the night I found you." Lyra turned away. "You don't understand," she said. "I don't belong here. I don't belong with humans. I don't even belong with you." A long silence filled the room. Then she walked outside. Over the following months, Lyra withdrew. More and more, she ate alone. She avoided Jonas. She spent nights on the roof staring at stars, as if expecting someone to appear and claim her. Every time Jonas tried to talk to her, she shut him out, but danger was approaching faster than either of them knew. One evening, while Jonas worked on a generator, he noticed a strange hum in the sky. He stepped outside and saw a dark shape far above the clouds. A ship, silent, not human, watching. His heart raced. They had found her again. He rushed inside. "Lyra," he said, "pack your things. We need to leave." She frowned. "Why, we're being watched," he said. "I saw a ship. Same type that searched during the storm years ago." Lyra's eyes burned with frustration. "Maybe that ship knows who I am. Maybe they're looking for me." "They're dangerous," Jonas insisted. "They hurt you before." "You don't know that," she snapped. "You're just scared to lose me." Jonas didn't answer. Deep down, he feared exactly that. Lyra stepped closer, her voice cold. "You're not my father. You don't get to choose my life." Those words cut deeper than any blade. Without waiting for him to speak, she grabbed a small pack and walked out. Jonas followed her to the edge of the road. "Lyra, please," he said. "You don't understand the danger." She stopped only once, just long enough to say, "I'm going to find the truth, with or without you." Then she walked away, heading toward the shuttleport lights in the distance. Jonas watched her disappear into the night dot above them. The dark ship slowly drifted closer. Its search had finally begun again. Lyra reached the shuttleport before dawn. Cold blue lights glowed along the landing pads, and thin fog drifted between metal towers. She had never been this far from Jonas's home before. Everything felt bigger, louder, and more dangerous. But she kept walking, her heart filled with stubborn courage and painful confusion. She wanted answers. Answers the small colony could never give. A trader ship arrived with a heavy thud. Its engines hissed, and the ramp lowered. People rushed forward with bags and crates. Lyra watched them, unsure how to even buy a ticket. She had no money, no ID, nothing that connected her to any world, yet she refused to turn back. She stepped toward the ramp. Before she could enter, a strong hand caught her wrist. She spun around, expecting a soldier or a bounty hunter. But it was Jonas. He looked exhausted, like he had run all night to reach her. "Lyra," he said breathlessly, "please listen." Her heart tightened. A part of her had hoped he wouldn't. Come, another part hoped he would. Lyra pulled her hand free. "I told you I'm leaving." "I know," Jonas answered gently. "But not like this. Not alone. Not without protection." Lyra crossed her arms. "I can protect myself." "Not from what's coming," Jonas said. "I saw the ship. The same kind that chased you before." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Good. Maybe they know who I am." Jonas shook his head firmly. "They chained you. They hurt you. They left you to die in the storm. You think they want to welcome you home?" Lyra looked away. "You don't know anything about them." "I know enough to fear them," Jonas said quietly. Lyra felt a stab of guilt. Jonas had always feared for her, cared for her, protected her more than any blood father. But her anger and confusion were stronger than her gratitude. "Jonas," she said in a low voice, "I don't belong with you. I need to know my real family." Jonas's face softened with an ache she recognized instantly. He looked like a man watching his child walk into fire. "I am your family," he whispered. Lyra flinched. Not because she didn't feel the same, but because admitting it meant staying. And staying meant staying lost forever. She couldn't accept that. Just then, a loud alarm echoed from the sky. People looked up in confusion. A dark triangular ship descended through the clouds. Silent, smooth, cold. The same style Jonas had seen before. Lyra's breath caught. The ship hovered above the shuttleport like a hunting bird. A beam of scanning light swept across the ground. People panicked and ran for cover. Jonas grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a cargo crate. "They're searching," he whispered. "You can't let them find you," Lyra trembled. The ship felt familiar, like a shadow from her nightmares. "Maybe they're mine," she whispered. "Maybe they're looking for me because they lost me." Jonas stared at her. "Lyra, if they cared, they would not have left you chained and starving." Her eyes filled with confusion, fear, and something like hope breaking apart inside her. Before she could answer, the scanning beam passed over the crates. Energy crackled. Jonas pushed Lyra down, shielding her with his body. The beam moved on, but the air smelled like burning metal. They had seconds. "Lyra," Jonas said urgently, "come home with me, please, just until we figure this out." Lyra looked at him, really looked. His worried eyes, his shaking hands, his breath quick from fear for her, not for himself, for a moment. She felt almost safe again, almost. But then a voice echoed from the ship, cold, sharp, speaking in the same unknown language she used in her nightmares. The sound sliced through her mind like a memory trying to wake up. Lyra gasped and grabbed her head. Jonas held her shoulders. "Lyra, look at me. Stay with me." But the voice kept calling her name, calling her home, or calling her death. Lyra pushed herself away from Jonas. "I have to go," she said. "I have to know why that voice knows me." "Lyra," Jonas reached for her, but she stepped back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She turned and ran toward the crowd. Jonas chased her, but people filled the path. Boxes, crates, alarms, smoke, everything blocked him. Lyra reached the trader ship first and ran up the ramp. The door began to close. "Lyra," Jonas shouted, "don't do this." She stopped for 1 second, 1 heartbeat. She looked back at him. Rain and fog blurred everything except her glowing silver eyes. "I have to find the truth," she said. "Goodbye." The ramp sealed. The ship lifted into the sky. Jonas stood alone on the landing pad as the dark hunter's ship followed close behind, scanning the clouds for its prey. And in that moment, Jonas understood the real fear. Lyra wasn't running toward answers. She was running toward danger she couldn't see. The trader ship carried Lyra far from the colony, far from Jonas, and far from everything she knew. As she sat in the narrow metal seat, she felt the engines shake and the stars stretch across the window like silver rivers. The crew barely noticed her. They had their own problems: pirates, taxes, fuel shortages. Lyra was just another passenger with too many questions and too little money. But she was not as invisible as she hoped. Hours after launch, she heard whispers from the crew. The words were soft but sharp, energy marks on her arms. "That species. High bounty." Lyra pulled her sleeves down and kept her head low. She did not know what her species was worth to others, but she knew enough rare things in the galaxy were hunted, not celebrated. At the next stop, the ship docked at a dusty outpost built inside a broken asteroid. Lights flickered, metal groaned, and the air smelled like rust and old secrets. Lyra stepped out carefully. She needed information. She needed a clue about her past. But every alien she passed stared at her glowing silver arm lines. Some stared with curiosity, others with hunger. She found a small information booth. The old clerk looked at her once, then twice, then leaned forward with wide, fearful eyes. "You," he whispered, "you should not be here." Lyra froze. "Do you know me?" "I know your kind," the clerk said. "You are Elvari. And if the hunters find you, they will tear this place apart." Lyra's heart pounded. "Why hunters of what?" The old man swallowed hard. "Your people can control energy, and that makes you valuable. To warlords, to armies, to criminals. Some want your power, some want your blood, and some want you dead. So no one else can use you." Lyra stepped back, shaking. She remembered the painful ring on her ankle when Jonas found her. Chains, metal, fear. She had escaped something terrible, without even knowing it. "Where are my people now?" she asked. Man looked at her with sad eyes. "Gone," he said. "Most were wiped out in the silent war." Lyra felt her chest tighten. "All of them. Maybe a few survived," he said. "But if they did, they are in hiding. Not even I would dare search for them." Lyra lowered her head. She had left Jonas searching for a family that no longer existed. Before she could speak again, the entire station shook. Sirens screamed. Metal doors slammed shut. The clerk grabbed her arm. "They found you," he whispered. "Run." Lyra turned toward the window and saw it. The hunter ship. The same dark triangle that hovered over the colony. The same cold glow. The same shadow in her nightmares. It floated outside the station doors like a silent knife. A voice echoed through. The speakers speaking in that strange language that made Lyra's bones shake. She understood only one thing. They were calling her name. The station guards scrambled, firing weapons at the ship, but the blasts bounced off like dust. The hunters sent small drones inside, black spheres with red scanning eyes. Lyra ran, pushing through crowds, slipping through narrow halls. The drones chased her, firing stun beams that cracked the walls. She reached a marketplace area where merchants ducked behind stalls. A drone fired. Lyra ducked, and the beam tore apart a crate of glowing fruit. Sparks filled the air. Shouts echoed. Chaos grew. Lyra raised her hands without thinking. Energy exploded from her palms. A bright silver wave shot forward, hitting the drone and smashing it into the ceiling. The crowd gasped. Some screamed. Some pointed at her. Some whispered, "Ovari, Ovari." She stared at her hands in fear. Jonas had always protected her from fights for a reason. She was dangerous, even to herself. More drones entered the hall. Lyra ran again, turning corners blindly. Doors closed behind her as people tried to block the path. Not to help her, but to survive. She reached a maintenance tunnel and slipped inside. Pipes lined the walls. Steam hissed from cracked joints. The sound of metal feet echoed behind her. A drone found her. It blocked the tunnel exit and aimed its weapon. Lyra closed her eyes. But the shot never came. Someone grabbed her collar and pulled her through a side hatch. The doors slammed shut. A tall figure in a long coat stood in the darkness, breathing hard. "You really don't know what you are," the stranger said. Lyra stepped back. "Who are you?" "A friend," the stranger said. "And the hunters will not stop until you're dead," Lyra swallowed. "Then help me find my people." The stranger stared at her glowing arm lines. "That," he said, "is exactly why the galaxy fears you." Before Lyra could speak again, explosions rocked the station. The hunters were breaking inside, and Lyra suddenly understood one truth. Running was no longer enough. She would have to fight, or she would die. The stranger's grip on Lyra's arm was firm but not cruel. He guided her through a narrow ventilation shaft while explosions boomed above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Pipes trembled. The entire station was under attack, and all because she was here. Lyra crawled fast, trying not to think about Jonas or the night she left him. She thought she was searching for truth, but now the truth was chasing her with weapons. The stranger pushed open a hatch, and they dropped into a silent storage room filled with crates. Emergency lights flickered red. The stranger finally spoke. "My name is Arden," he said. "I used to work with the Elvari before the war." Lyra stepped back in shock. "You knew my people," Arden nodded, but his eyes were heavy with memory. "I was part of a small research team. The Elvari were peaceful, gentle and rare, but their power made them targets. Many empires feared what they could do." Lyra looked down at her glowing silver arm lines. She had never felt peaceful or gentle. She felt dangerous. "What happened to them?" she asked. Arden sighed. "When the silent war began, the hunters captured Elvari children. They didn't want to kill them. They wanted to use them, turn them into weapons." Lyra felt cold. "So I was one of them." "A weapon?" Arden shook his head. "No, you were one who escaped. Someone smuggled you out before they could break you." Lyra remembered flashes from her nightmare's cold metal. Rooms, voices shouting, light so bright it hurt. She always thought they were dreams. Now she realized they were memories. Before she could speak again, Arden grabbed her shoulder. "We need to move. We can't stay in one place." They ran through the storage hall. Outside the station walls, the hunter ship fired again. A deep growl of metal crushed the air. Panels burst open. The floor shook. People screamed in distant corridors. Lyra and Arden reached a small security room. Arden smashed the lock and pulled. Open a drawer of weapons. He handed her a small energy blade. Her hands trembled. I don't know how to use this. Arden switched it on. A thin beam hummed to life. You will, he said. Your instincts will guide you. Lyra stared at the blade. Jonas had spent years keeping weapons out of her hands. He always said she would find a better path. But now she needed to survive. Arden opened a door leading to a hidden maintenance dock. A small ship was parked inside, scratched and old but functional. We escape, Arden said. Then we search for anyone left from your people. Lyra felt hope spark in her chest. A tiny, fragile hope. Maybe she wasn't alone. Maybe she still had a family somewhere in the galaxy. But before they could reach the ship, 3 drones dropped. From the ceiling, red lights glowing, weapons charged. They fired. Arden pushed Lyra behind him and blocked the first blast with a metal panel. The explosion sent him rolling across the floor. Lyra screamed his name and raised the energy blade without thinking. A second drone fired. Lyra reacted. Her silver arm lines flared bright. A wave of crackling light burst from her palm, colliding with the drone. The machine smashed into the wall and exploded. Lyra blinked at her own power. Arden coughed and stood up, staring at her with shock. You're stronger than any Elvari child we ever met. Lyra didn't feel strong. She felt scared. But fear was pushing her forward now. The third drone aimed at Arden. Lyra jumped in front of him and swung the energy blade. The beam sliced through the drone cleanly, and sparks filled the air. For the first time, Lyra realized she was not helpless. She was not weak. She was not a lost child anymore. She was becoming something fearsome. Arden rushed to the ship and opened the hatch. Inside, now the hunters will send more. Lyra climbed in, her heart racing. Arden followed and started the engines. The small craft shook violently. The hangar doors were half destroyed, and flames licked the walls. Arden shouted, "Hold! On!" The ship blasted forward, smashing through falling debris and slipping into space. The hunter ship turned sharply, sending a swarm of drones after them. Arden swore under his breath. We cannot outrun them, he said. Lyra closed her eyes. Then we fight. She placed her hands on the ship's console. Her silver lines glowed brighter than ever. The ship's engine lights brightened. The control panels flickered. A new power surged through the craft. What are you doing? Arden gasped. Lyra whispered. Jonas always said I had strength I couldn't see. She released the power inside her. A shockwave burst outward from the small ship, tearing through the drone swarm. Sparks scattered across space like falling stars. The hunter ship shook violently, its shields flickering. Arden stared at her in awe. Lyra, you're not just an Elvari. Lyra breathed hard, her hands shaking. Then what am I? Arden whispered. Someone the galaxy should fear. Lyra stared out the window, watching the hunter ship recover and chase them again. She wiped the sweat from her forehead. No, she said quietly. Not fear. Someone the galaxy will respect. But deep inside her, one truth kept burning. Jonas had been right to protect her, and she still needed him more than she wanted to admit. Asterisk. Space stretched endlessly around Lyra as Arden's small ship drifted through safe zones far from the hunter. Fleets. Days passed in silence. Lyra trained every day, learning to control the energy inside her. Sometimes she remembered the storm night when Jonas found her. Sometimes she remembered the way she shouted at him, the way she walked away without looking back. Those memories hurt more than the hunter's weapons. Arden studied old Elvari records, trying to find survivors, but every trail ended the same way: burned villages, abandoned stations, erased data. One night, while Lyra sat alone watching stars through the window, Arden walked over and placed a small datapad beside her. This is the last surviving record, he said. Lyra opened it. A small hologram flickered to life. It showed a young Elvari boy with glowing silver arm lines like hers. He spoke softly in a language she did not fully understand, but one word repeated many times. Family. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "They're all gone, aren't they?" Arden lowered his head. "If any survived, they are in hiding. Even I cannot find them." Lyra closed the datapad slowly. A deep emptiness filled her chest. She had left Jonas to search for a family that no longer existed. Arden hesitated before speaking again. "Lyra, if you want to return to your colony, I can take you." Lyra looked at him in shock. "Why would you do that for me?" Arden smiled sadly. "Because you are fighting for answers. But sometimes answers are not in the stars. They are in the people who stayed with you when you had nothing." Lyra's heart twisted. Jonas had stayed. He had protected her. He had cared for her when no one else did. And she left him without a goodbye. She wiped her eyes. "Take me home." Arden nodded and set the coordinates. The journey was quiet. Lyra spent the entire time staring at the hologram of the Elvari boy. She imagined how her life might have been if her people survived, if the hunters never found them, if she didn't end up in the storm. But then she remembered Jonas's warm house, his tired smile, his gentle voice telling her she was safe. Maybe fate had placed her where she truly belonged. After 2 days, Arden pointed out the window. "There it is, your colony." Lyra's breath caught. The small blue and brown planet looked peaceful from space, nothing like the chaos she had seen across the galaxy. She felt both fear and hope rising inside her. "Will Jonas forgive me?" she whispered. Arden looked at her. "You never forget the child you raise. He will forgive you." The ship landed far outside the town to avoid attention. Lyra stepped out first. The air felt familiar, cold, clean, carrying the smell of pine trees and old soil. She walked quickly down the path toward Jonas's home. With every step, her heart pounded harder. She reached the house. The door was closed. The windows were dark. The yard was overgrown with tall weeds. The lights that Jonas kept on every night were off. The tools he always left on the porch were gone. Lyra's heart stopped. She pushed the door open. The house was empty, not damaged, not abandoned suddenly. It was cleaned, packed, quiet, as if someone who lived there for years had left slowly, carrying memories with them. Lyra stepped into the living room, her fingers to touch the walls. She imagined Jonas sitting in his old chair. She imagined him cooking. She imagined herself at the table, smiling for the first time. She whispered his name. "Jonas." But only silence answered. She walked into her old room. Everything was gone except one small object placed carefully on the floor, a tiny wooden star Jonas carved for her when she was sick years ago. She picked it up and held it tightly. Arden entered behind her. "Lyra, he didn't abandon you." Lyra shook her head, tears falling. "Then where did he go? Why would he leave this place?" Arden looked around. "He stayed here until the end. He waited for you. But maybe he thought you would never return." Lyra sank to her knees, the wooden star pressed against her chest. "I left him alone. I didn't even say goodbye." Arden knelt beside her. He left a clue. Lyra looked at him through blurred eyes. "What clue?" Arden handed her a small piece of paper he found near the door. On it were 3 words written in Jonas's simple handwriting. "I hope she returns." Lyra clutched the note with shaking hands. Arden stood up and said softly, "He must be somewhere close. Working, waiting, hoping." Lyra wiped her tears and stood slowly. "Then I will find him, no matter how long it takes." Her silver arm lines glowed gently, not with the power of a hunted weapon, but with determination. For the first time in her life, she knew who her family truly was. Lyra stood outside Jonas's empty house until the evening sun touched the hills. She held the wooden star in one hand and the small paper note in the other. The words burned inside her heart. "I hope she returns," she whispered to herself. Here, Jonas. I came back. Where are you? Arden stepped beside her. Lyra, people in this town might know where he went. Lyra nodded and wiped her face. Then we ask everyone. They walked into the quiet colony town. The streets looked smaller than she remembered. The lights seemed softer. Every building carried a memory. The bakery Jonas used to buy bread from. The small workshop where he repaired machines. The old bench where she sat on cold evenings, pretending she didn't enjoy his company. She wondered how many of those moments she had wasted. They spoke to the townspeople one by one. An old woman recognized Jonas immediately. "Oh yes, child," she said kindly. "He stayed here for years after you left. Always fixing something for someone. Always watching the sky at night." Lyra swallowed hard. Did he say why he left? The woman nodded slowly. One day he said, maybe she found her people. Maybe she is happy now. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then he took a small bag and walked toward the northern mines. Lyra felt her heart twist. He left because of me. No, the woman said gently. He left because he believed you deserved the whole galaxy. And he didn't want you to come back and feel trapped. Lyra lowered her head. Jonas had always tried to protect her, even from herself. Arden placed a hand on her shoulder. "The northern mines are far," he said. "We should rest and go in the morning." But Lyra shook her head. "No, he waited for me for years. I will not make him wait another night." They began the long journey under the rising moon. The road was rough, filled with sharp stones and cold winds. Lyra didn't slow down. Every step felt like a piece of her past returning to her after many hours. The orange glow of mining lamps appeared in the distance. The northern mines, machines hummed in the dark. Huge metal claws scraped the rock face. Workers moved like shadows, tired and silent. Lyra walked toward a small wooden cabin near the edge. An old man sat outside, drinking warm tea. He looked up as they approached. "Can I help you?" he asked. Lyra stepped forward with a shaking voice. "I'm looking for a man named Jonas Walker." The old man stared at her for a long moment. Then a slow smile touched his face. "Ah," he whispered, "so you must be the girl." Lyra's breath caught. "He told you about me?" "Every day," the man said. "He talked about you like a star he lost in the night sky." Lyra felt tears rising again. "Where is he?" The old man pointed behind the cabin. "He's working late tonight. He never stops, even when we tell him to rest." Lyra ran before anyone could say another word. She followed the sound of metal striking stone, down a slope, past stacks of tools, through a narrow path carved in the rock. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her ears. Then she saw him. Jonas stood alone near the mouth of a cave. His hair had turned almost white. His back looked tired. His hands shook slightly as he worked with a heavy drill. He looked older, weaker, lonelier. Lyra stopped just a few steps behind him for the first time in years. She saw the man who raised her, the man who protected her, the man she hurt with her words. Her voice trembled. "Jonas!" The drill fell from his hands. He froze. Slowly he turned around. His eyes widened. His breath caught. He said nothing at first. He simply stared, as if afraid she might disappear if he blinked. "Lyra?" he whispered. "Is it really you?" She nodded through tears. "Yes, I came back." Jonas took one step toward her, then another. His eyes glistened with disbelief and love. "I didn't think." His voice broke. "I didn't think I would ever see you again." Lyra rushed forward and threw her arms around him. Jonas held her tightly, like a man holding a miracle. "I'm sorry," she cried into his shoulder. "I'm so sorry for leaving. I'm sorry for everything I said. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know who I was." Jonas held her face gently and wiped her tears like he did when she was small. "You don't have to apologize. You came home. That's what matters. Lyra shook her head. No, you are my home. You always were. Jonas smiled softly. Then stay. If you want to. Lyra pressed her forehead against his. I'm never leaving you again. Arden watched from a distance with a small smile. The mining lights glowed behind them, painting the reunion in warm gold. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt whole. She had searched the galaxy for roots, but her true family had been waiting for her all along, and as Jonas held her close, her silver arm lines glowed not with fear or power, but with peace.